So they keep this little tidbit of information in the back of their minds while they wait for that little DNA to come back from Passionetta's shirt. And when it do, it was like, boom, gotcha. Hey y'all, welcome and/or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode. So if you're ready, let's go. All right, y'all. So this is the second time I'm recording this video because the first time I really just wasn't feeling it. I was editing it and I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling it. And so here we are for round two because I felt like I could have just done better. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into today's case. And if you've been here for a little minute now, then you already know that we are going from the little houses on the prairies to the mansions of the hills in America in alphabetical order. So from Alabama to Wyoming. And today we are in Omaha, Nebraska, where a young lady named Passionetta Daphne Fitzgerald was born on July 18th, 1965. To her mother, Beverly. And of Beverly's children, Passionetta was one of three. But at some point during Passionetta's life, Miss Beverly would end up marrying a man named Sam Frazier, who himself had three children. And so they essentially became the Brady Bunch with her three plus his three. But instead of it being 3 boys and 3 girls, it would be 5 boys and 1 girl. Passionetta being said girl. And being that Passionetta was the only girl in the family, I can only imagine that every now and again she liked to just get out and get away. And as a native born and raised in North Omaha, Passionetta had no problem becoming involved in her community. And as a super talented young girl who absolutely loved the stage, the church and the theater became the 2 main communities that she would thrive in. It was said that not only did she love the stage, but the stage loved her as well. And so did the people off stage, because Miss Beverly said that when Passionetta walked into a room, she was the type of person to just light up a room with her smile. She was always smiling, always happy, giggly, just always a good presence to be around. And in addition to her light up the room personality, my personal opinion, her face lit up a room as well, more than likely, because look at this. This woman is absolutely gorgeous. When I first saw this picture in particular, it gave me 90s natural beauty R&B singer pretty type. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Matter of fact, it reminded me of SWV. SWV. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure she had no problem getting male attention. And one of the men's attention that she grabbed was a man named Marvin Amons. And Marvin was roughly just about a year older than her, having been born on October 26, 1964. And it was never stated when, where, and how the two of them met, but they did. And so there's really little to no information about their relationship available. So I really couldn't tell you if they met before, during, or after he became a sergeant in the Army. And I honestly couldn't even tell you if their relationship was good, bad, or indifferent. But what I can tell you is that in 1992, they had a baby boy who they decided to name Cameron. And for the next 4 years, it would appear as though Passionetta, Marvin, and Cameron were just a regular happy little family. Sadly though, their family would end up being shattered when Marvin was shot and killed on his 33rd birthday at roughly 1:30 in the morning by an Omaha police officer named Todd Sears. So according to reports, Marvin's car had broken down in the wee hours of the morning on his birthday, and when 2 officers approached him to see what was going on, one of them mistook a cell phone for a weapon and shot him to death. Now, the officer did end up going to trial for this, and he was ultimately acquitted of all charges, but later on decided to quit the force due to PTSD that was caused by the murder. Now, obviously, Marvin's death caused a lot of grief to not only his family, but to Passionetta as well. They lost a brother, a son, a cousin, a friend, and she lost the father of her child, the person who was supposed to be with her to watch their child grow and thrive and just be there to guide their son as a father does. But now she was just left to raise Cameron all by herself as a single parent. Now, don't get me wrong, she did have a lot of support from what I can gather from not only her family, but from his family as well. But nobody in any family can replace a parent, right? But, you know, what Tupac say, life goes on. Passionetta moved on with her life, as best she could, but she never really distanced herself from Marvin's family, more specifically Marvin's older son, Marvell. She remained a significant figure in his life. And eventually, she would end up surrounding herself with a bunch of kids after opening her own daycare called Little Ladies and Gents. Now, real quick, I really don't know where else in the video to put this, so I'm gonna just say it right here. There was never any mention of how her last name went from Fitzgerald to Prince. But my guess is that she would end up meeting and marrying a man whose last name was Prince, and for whatever reason, he just ended up not being in her life anymore, and she kept the last name. Or, being that she was into theater really heavy, this could have just been her stage name, Passionetta Prince. Anyhow, moving forward, it's 2004 now, and Passionetta meets a man named Patrick Baldwin. Now, this is a man who she's seen around town for years, since she was a young girl, but they never really had any interactions with one another. They kind of just knew each other in passing, just like, oh, I've seen this person before, but they ain't really know each other for real, for real. But it's in 2004 when the two of them met again and started mixing and mingling. And eventually they became a couple, and Patrick would end up moving in with Passionetta, and he even started helping her out with running the daycare. And according to him, when it was good, it was good. And when it was bad, it wasn't all bad. It was like mediocre bad. But out of all the good that she had and all of the things that Patrick liked about her, there was just one thing about Passionetta that Patrick could not stand. And that was her stepson, Marvell. He could not stand Marvell. Despised him, detested him even. He did not like the fact that Passionetta would from time to time let Marvell come and stay with her. He did not like the fact that when Marvell was staying with her, he would have all kind of shady characters in the house. He could not stand the fact that Marvell was having parties on a Tuesday, Wednesday night when people had to get up and go to work in the morning. And it was because of her constant willingness to just allow Marvell to be around and kind of, in his opinion, do whatever, that they was an on and off kind of thing. They would break up to make up to break up, and then do it all over again. And this on and off thing that they had went on for roughly around two years. But then February 26, 2006 rolls around, and that's when everything changes. So it's a Sunday, and Miss Beverly goes to church per usual. But unlike any other typical Sunday, Beverly notices that her daughter, Passionetta, is not at church. And off rip, this is weird because Passionetta don't miss church. But this particular Sunday, it was especially weird because Passionetta had a role in the church play that they were supposed to perform after the service. And again, I told y'all already, Passionetta, super big in the theater world. Listen, her and theater, they went together real bad. She wasn't about to miss no performance, whether it was the small performance or a big one. So after service, Beverly like, all right, cool, let me call my baby. So Miss Beverly calls Passionetta's house phone. She don't get an answer. So she like, okay, maybe she not at home. No big deal. She calls Passionetta's cell phone, going straight to voicemail. Okay, well that's a little strange, but I'll try again later. Later on comes, Miss Beverly called the house phone, ring, 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 goes to voicemail. Call the cell phone, straight to voicemail. And this constant calling goes on throughout the day until about 5:30 when Beverly is like, you know what? I'm done calling. I'm about to pop up on my child. So she calls one of her stepsons and she has him take her over to Passionetta's house so that they can check on her. They get to the house, they knocking on the front door, no answer. They knocking on the side door, no answer. So Miss Beverly's like, you know what? I'm calling the cops. So that's exactly what she does. She calls the police. And when the police show up, she tells her the situation like, hey, my baby ain't make it to church, blah, 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 blah. She didn't go get her son from his friend's house, da, 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 this ain't like her. You know, the whole nine. She gives them the rundown. So they make entry into Passionetta's home and they looking around, everything seems cool. But then they go and look in the basement. And before they even are able to make entry into the basement, they see that Passionetta is lying at the bottom of the basement stairs, face down, and she is clearly deceased. And so now they have to go back outside and deliver the absolutely devastating news of Passionetta's death to Miss Beverly. And once they deliver the news to Miss Beverly, they start their investigation. And right away, it's clear that Passionetta fought her attacker. And so immediately they swab under her fingernails for DNA because hopefully in this struggle, she got some of the DNA from her perpetrator under her nails. And then they go on to collect evidence and, just look around and see what's going on. And pretty much they had determined that Passionetta had been strangled and beaten to death. And they believe that they know what the weapon is, being as how there was an air compressor kind of tucked off in the corner of the room that was missing a couple of plastic pieces. And the pieces that it was missing were next to Passionetta's body. And it appeared as though she was strangled with the cord of the air compressor. And so that was collected as well. And once they were finished processing the downstairs, they kind of just wanted to go around the rest of the house to see if they could see anything. Maybe this attack started somewhere else. And, they just wanted to process the whole scene and do a thorough job. And while they were upstairs in Passionetta's bedroom, they noticed that not only was Passionetta's clothes there, but there were also clothes of a male that appeared to belong to a man. And on one particular pair of said man's jeans, there was a rip at the knee and it appeared to have blood around the rip. And so obviously this piqued the investigators' interest because like what? And once they found all of this in Passionetta's bedroom, they asked Miss Beverly, was there anybody else who lived in the house? And this is when Beverly told them about Patrick. Now, she said she didn't really know too much about Patrick himself, but what she did know was that Passionetta and Patrick had been in an on and off relationship for the past 2 years. But that was really all the information that she could provide for them. So naturally, they want to talk to Patrick. But he really wasn't that hard to find though, because as news started spreading about what happened to Passionetta, 2 of Patrick's brothers ended up bringing him down to the police station so that he could be questioned voluntarily. And he spoke with detectives for a little while before asking for a lawyer. And once he got a lawyer, he ended up talking to them, consulting with them for a little bit. And he and his lawyer agreed that he could continue speaking to the detectives. And during this time, while he was talking to the detectives, he provided them with his alibi for the night. He also allowed them to take swabs of his DNA and photograph him as well, because he did have a couple of injuries on his knees. And he said that the reason why he had those injuries on his knees was because the garage at Passionetta's house had broke and he was trying to fix it. And while he was trying to fix it, the garage, in his terms, fucked him up pretty bad, basically. And while he was the main suspect and the fact that he had a knee injury seemed a little suspicious, detectives really didn't have much else to go on, and everything that he said pretty much checked out. His alibi was confirmed by his sister. He was at a family function, like a family birthday party, all night. And then their neighbor confirmed that he was fooling around with the garage and the garage had beat him up pretty much. I remember when I said that Patrick's sister and his brother showed up to the scene, but he wasn't there. He had ended up coming to the police station a little bit later. Well, police kind of wanted to know about that. Like, why in the world would you not come if you thought something had happened to Passionetta? And the reason why is because he said that the brother and sister that showed up to the scene, they told him not to come because they didn't want him to run into Marvell. They didn't want him to run into Passionetta's stepson because they knew that there was some type of like animosity there. And yeah, they just didn't want nothing to pop off. So now that they got his alibi and stuff out the way, they want to retrace Passionetta's steps. And it starts with Friday night. And basically on Friday night, Passionetta had a play rehearsal that she had to go to, and Patrick had a family function that he had to go to. And initially Patrick wanted Passionetta to go to the family function because it was somewhat of a party for his birthday. They were celebrating him. But she was super dedicated to the theater. So she told Patrick, look, I can't come with you right now, but if I got time after the rehearsal, I'll meet up with you and we can celebrate together that way. Patrick was pretty much just like, oh, okay, cool, bet. Don't worry about it. Enjoy yourself, have a great rehearsal. Patrick went his way. Passionetta went her way. Now, Patrick is over here partying with his family, celebrating his birthday at bars and just having a good old time. And over here, Passionetta completes her rehearsal and decides that she's gonna go bar hopping as well. But she's not about to go bar hopping and be with Patrick and his family to celebrate his birthday. She's about to go bar hopping with her friends and have fun with them. And both of them end up closing out the separate bars that they at. Patrick and his family leave a bar at around 1:30 when their bar closes. And Passionetta leaves the other bar at around 1:30 when it closes. And Patrick goes back to Passionetta's house. But Passionetta don't go back to Passionetta house. She goes to an after party with her rehearsal friends. And while she was at this after party, she ran into an old friend named Michael. Now, Michael was more like an old family member versus an old friend because one of Passionetta's brothers used to be married to one of Michael's sisters. So they chit-chat and they catch up, they enjoying their night. And while they talking, Passionetta's phone just keeps on ringing. And no surprise, it's Patrick. He back at home already, and now he's calling and calling and calling, trying to figure out where Passionetta is at. And it was determined that he had called her 19 times in an hour. So from 2:21 to 3:32, there were 19 phone calls. He was getting on her nerves. And she was letting people at the party know that Patrick was getting on her damn nerves. Now, mind you, she knew Patrick was already at the house because these calls is coming from her house phone because Patrick didn't have a cell phone. So she knew that Patrick was at the house calling her like, girl, where you at? Right? She knew that's what he wanted. So she like, I'm sick of him. Let me just go home. But when she was ready to leave, Michael, he knew that she had been drinking. So he was like, look, I know you've been drinking. Let me just make sure you get home safe. Is it cool if I follow you? And Passionetta was like, yeah, I'm good though. But yeah, you follow me if that makes you feel better. And so she lead the party between 3:30 and 3:45 a.m. with Michael behind her. So they make it back to Passionetta's house safely. And Passionetta goes inside and everything's all good. But as Michael is driving away, he notices that Passionetta's Impala is parked about a block and a half down the road. Just to note, Passionetta has two cars. She got an Impala and she has a van. And she drove the van that night and Patrick drove the Impala. So Michael's driving down the street. He sees the Impala parked a block and a half away. And he like, damn, that's crazy. So he stops and he goes to check out the car just to see if it had been vandalized and make sure everything was good. So he looking in the car, looking around the car. It don't look like nothing's going on with the car. And he like, yeah, that's weird. So he go back to Passionetta's house and he knocks on the door. Passionetta opens the door and he like, yeah, I sent your car down the road. Is you good in here? And she's like, yeah, I'm good. But when she opened the door, Patrick was behind her. And so Patrick is like, who is you? And Michael was like, look, I'm just a family friend. I just wanted to make sure she got home straight. I don't want no problems. And Patrick was like, she good, I'm good, we good, you can leave. And so he does. Michael leaves the house. But when he leaves the house, he really just, again, gets this uneasy feeling. And so he calls Passionetta like, yo, are you sure you okay? Because I can come back. It's not a problem. And she was like, nah, yeah, I'm good. And that concludes Friday night. So moving on to Saturday now, Patrick and Passionetta spend most of the morning together. Passionetta has a migraine. Patrick takes care of her while she has this migraine. They talk to a couple different people. Passionetta talks to her friends. She talks to her family. Cameron comes back home to grab some more clothes to go back over his homeboy house to spend another night. And everything is cool. And then 4:30 rolls around and Patrick's sister Michelle calls. And she calls about a hotel party that Patrick is supposed to be setting up for her kids. And during this phone call, Michelle could hear Passionetta in the background. And, you know, they speak, they say their hellos, whatever. And then at around 5 o'clock p.m., that's when Patrick goes his way towards the hotel to set everything up. And Passionetta goes her way to another rehearsal. And Patrick is gone for the rest of the night at the hotel with his sister and, you know, his family for the kids' birthday. And then Passionetta's out doing whatever it is that she's doing. And that concludes Saturday. And then y'all already know what happened on Sunday. So after retracing Passionetta's steps for the weekend, they obviously now want to look into Michael because you follow her home. She in the house with another dude. Did you make a pass at her and then something went wrong? Like, they didn't know what to think about this Michael guy. And so they go look into Michael, and he too has an alibi, and he too offers up his DNA freely. And yeah, they move along. And now they dive into Passionetta's phone records. And in the phone records, they notice that there's a phone number that she's been talking to a lot. And it turns out that this was the landlord to her place. And it comes out that she and the landlord had been seeing each other, but kind of on the low because the landlord was married. And so, yeah, didn't want that to get out. And so obviously they look into him as well. And after getting the DNA from the main three suspects, they really hoping that once the analysis from under her nails comes back, that it's a match to one of them. But when they get the analysis back from under her fingernails, it's not exactly the nail in the coffin that they was hoping for. So underneath her nails, there was her DNA, there was her son's DNA, and there was Patrick's DNA, which could all be explained because she takes care of her son. She is herself, so she could have scratched herself, and she's in a relationship with Patrick. Patrick lives in the house as well, so it's not like a nail in the coffin that those three DNA profiles were under her nail. However, there was one other profile that was under her nails. Unfortunately, though, it didn't match to either Michael nor the landlord. So at this point, it's unidentified. And without somebody else to test it against, it's kind of useless. And as the investigation goes on, they keep hitting roadblock after roadblock because they got the DNA analysis back from the air compressor in which they believe Passionetta was beaten and strangled with, but it only had hers and Patrick's DNA on it, which again, they both live in the house. It's completely explainable. And then they got the DNA analysis back from the ripped jeans that belonged to Patrick, you know, the blood that was around the rip in the jeans. And the only blood that was on that was Patrick's. So everything seems to be checking out. And unfortunately, Passionetta's case goes cold. And it stays that way until it's reopened by Omaha's Cold Case Unit in 2008. And it's now that they decide to test some of the blood stains that were found on Passionetta's pajama top that she was wearing at the time of her death. Now, they didn't do this initially because it was so saturated with blood that they thought that it would be pretty much impossible to find anybody else's profile besides Passionetta's on the top. But now they just like, fuck it, we ball. Let's just try. So they ended up swabbing and testing a couple of different spots. And while they waited for the results of those swabs to come back, they re-interviewed some of the old people. And one of those people was Michelle, Patrick's sister. Remember the one who was having a birthday party for her kids at the hotel? So in her initial interview, she said that Patrick was with her at the hotel, like he had said, and that he wanted to use her car at one point. But in that first interview, she never elaborated on him wanting to use her car. But this time, 2 years later in 2008, she went into detail. And what she said was that the party died down around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and Patrick had asked her, could he use her car to go play gambling or do something with the guys? And she was like, yeah, just take my daughter's cell phone because, you know, I told you Patrick didn't have a cell phone at the time. Take my daughter's cell phone just in case I need you. And he was like, okay, cool, no problem. And he ended up leaving the hotel between 10:30 and 11 p.m. that night. And Michelle said she had went to sleep. She didn't think too much more about it. But then she woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and Patrick still wasn't there. But she didn't think nothing about it because this was normal. He was out hanging out with the guys, whatever. But she needed him to come back though because she had ended up leaving her baby's like diaper bag and stuff in the car and she had to change her baby. And so she called Patrick on her daughter's cell phone like, hey, I need you to come back, blah, 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 blah. I left the baby stuff in the trunk, da, 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 da. And he was like, okay, cool, no problem. And he ended up arriving back at the hotel at around 2:20 in the morning. So detectives hear this and they like, oh, so nobody came to count for his whereabouts between 10:30 and 2. Okay, so they keep this little tidbit of information in the back of their minds while they wait for that little DNA to come back from Passionetta's shirt. And when they do, it was like, boom, bitch, gotcha. Because the spots that they tested on Passionetta's shirt came back as her DNA profile. There was one that was her DNA profile. There was one that was Patrick's DNA profile. And there was one that was a mixture of her and Patrick's DNA. So explain this, sir. And so yeah, with this new DNA evidence and him not having an alibi, they arrested Patrick in June of 2009 and charged him with first-degree murder. And once he was arrested, he was like, oh hell no. And he decided that he wanted to talk to the detectives. So he requested to talk to them and they didn't deny. They was like, okay, cool, bet, come on, let's chit chat, motherfucker. I got some stuff I need to say to you. And so during this interview, y'all, Patrick talked so much. But when I tell you he didn't say a damn thing, like he talked for a long time, but he didn't say too much. He talked in circles. It was exhausting. And y'all, I listened to the entire 4-hour interview. But there was one part in the interview that kind of made me cackle, because towards the end, when the detectives are like, listen, bro, we got you. There's blood on her shirt that's yours. And you just said 2-3 hours ago that y'all didn't never fight. And now you trying to explain the blood that's on her shirt that's yours. Like, yeah, no. And then how's about, why you call her 19 times within an hour on Saturday night into Sunday morning, but then you ain't never called her again after that? And he was like, I can explain that. And the detective was like, okay. And it got quiet because he didn't have a fucking reason.
Then the question would be, after those phone records there, there's not a lot of calls that's coming from you, when it comes to Saturday, Sunday, and what have you.
You know why? Well,
no, because
I'm gonna tell you why.
Tremendous amount of concern.
I'm gonna tell you why.
Saturday
No,
morning.
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why there's no calls. Because
Okay.
there's a damn good reason why.
Okay.
Anyways, he denied everything and decided to try to take this to trial. And when he did, the prosecution, they pretty much handed him his ass, because there had been witness statements from kids and their parents to say that Patrick had got put out that morning, on Friday morning. Patrick and Passionetta had gotten into an argument, and Passionetta was like, yeah, you gotta go. We done for real this time. And she put him out, and he couldn't handle that. He didn't like that. He didn't want to be put out on his ass, because from what I gathered, homeboy was like a bum. And so he had nowhere else to go. He claimed he had somewhere else to go, which was other people's houses, which was neither here nor there. Yeah, they basically presented that as a motive as to why he did this. And the defense, I really don't know what their defense was. Yeah, but nonetheless, the jury went back to deliberate, and they ended up finding him actually not guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, but they did find him guilty of the lesser charge of second-degree homicide. And for this, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole in 2010. And even though this would never bring Passionetta back, her family was pleased with the outcome. And I really just feel so bad for Cameron, because he lost his dad at the age of 4 or 3 or 4. And then to lose his mom at the age of 13. And both of them to murder at that, like, oh, Lord Jesus. He grown now. But the fact that he had to grow up without both of his parents because of the actions of somebody else is just hurtful. But from what I can see, he grew up to be a lovely young man. And thankfully, Miss Beverly got to watch him grow into the young man that he became before sadly passing away in 2023. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. But at some point, Miss Beverly will marry a man named Sam Frazier. And, what? When I saw this, now, former officer, and more specifically, I'm talking about Marvell's older son. No, oops. But she never distanced her. But she never really distanced. If it was just a stage name, I don't think it would have been on her obituary. So my. Wow, that stutter. Oh, it's my husband. I know it. Oh, it's not. Don't call me. Like, I'm trying to get comfortable and my kneecaps. Oh my gosh. Don't turn off. What did I just say? Because he used to be married to one of Passionetta's sisters. No. And this is, no. Yeah. Whatever. She said that Patrick asked her, could he